Mercury retrograde doesn't create stuff, it just makes a bit of a mess of it. Jody Levon. Welcome to the Good Karma Success Coach podcast. My name is Melinda Van Fleet, and I'm a mindset success coach. My husband Ryan and I had successful corporate jobs and were both laid off at the same time. We started over with nothing but a big dream and a lot of goals and moved to the Florida Keys. And we always said that someday when we get our shit together, we will help others. So my intent is to share with you tactical tips, tools, and learnings that you can use in your general life or business and make an impact. Because I strongly feel that if we can do it, you can do it too. What's stopping you? Mercury in retrograde. It's kind of funny. Over the years, I have not been paying that much attention to astrology or moon phases, checking my horoscope, numerology, anything like that. I used to be quite obsessed with checking my horoscope in magazines years ago and then really thinking that all of that would come true. And sometimes it did, quite frankly. So that's probably why I kept going. It gave me some hope for the month in terms of what I was working on or wishing for. But Mercury in retrograde this year is still going on this July. It's over July 31st. So about a week left. And I find it funny that sometimes we blame people's behavior on the moon. And, you know, quite frankly, it helps. It just helps to kind of say, hey, Mercury's in retrograde. That's why everyone's acting a little crazy. So I personally even find it kind of a funny thing to refer to. And this week in the Keys, we have mini lobster season. So if you know anything about the state of Florida, it's a big income driver for the state of Florida to have this mini lobster season that is the last Wednesday and Thursday of every July. Everyone comes down here all gung-ho to catch as many lobster as they can, and it creates quite a bit of havoc, quite frankly, for the locals. Some might not have it as their favorite time of year because of all the traffic and everything. So with Mercury being in retrograde and mini lobster season, there's just a lot of crazy behavior going on. So my topic this week is about apologizing. And they all kind of go hand in hand. And apologizing is something that, you know, one would think that is maybe part of your childhood and learning from your parents. But my husband and I were talking about it this morning, and it's not necessarily so. You know, a lot of households don't have apologizing as part of, you know, their practice. You know, maybe they didn't see their parents apologize to each other after maybe they had a fight or a disagreement. Maybe they weren't taught personally to apologize to others if they did or said something wrong. And they probably certainly didn't have perhaps their parents apologize to them as children if they did something wrong or said something wrong. You know, I definitely experienced that myself with my mother. So I'm not a therapist, so I'm not going to get into all that. I really just want to talk about the art, I'll call it the art of apologizing and being able to just move forward, because I think it's something that's really important. And we all only have so much space in our brains and really only can focus on thinking about one certain thing at a time. So when you are often stewing about something that maybe someone did to you or said to you or put in an email to you or posted on social media to you, or the opposite where you did something to them, you said something that was out of line, you said something with judgment, you did something that you then have guilty feelings about. You know, sometimes it's just easier to apologize and just get it off your brain and move forward. I like to use my brain power, let's say, for thinking positive, for gratitude, for I am statements, for prayer, for thinking about maybe something I learned or I listened to. You know, if anyone knows my Instagram daily walk and content that I do every morning, those are the things I like to think about, is maybe what I've learned or what I'm working on or my goals, versus worrying about or thinking about or stressing about the things I did wrong or should have done or should have said, or if someone else did or should have done something to me. Something I've said before that I'll repeat again because I just think it's so important, and I had picked it up from Gabby Bernstein last year, was see yourself as the other person. And you can think of this the opposite as well, in terms of if you know that you need to apologize, maybe it wouldn't hurt to share a little backstory of you were having a bad day, or you had to put your dog to sleep. There's a million different things that go on with all of our lives. And sometimes something may come across a certain way and you need to apologize. Just get it off your brain and share what was going on with you. And I just truly believe in the human race that we are all forgiving people. And if you apologize to them and say what's going on with you, just simply, then that person is also free and can forgive you for what they were probably angry about and stewing as well. So you're not only freeing up your own brain space, but you're probably helping that person out too by letting them go, oh, I get it. I understand what was happening, and let them move on. I had a situation with not getting paid on time, and I did stand up for myself. That took a little bit of courage, and I'm going to talk about courage in another podcast, because I didn't want to rock any boats, but I did end up finding a way to professionally stand up for myself. And the person emailed me back this huge apology email, and that person I just don't think was thinking clearly about their response. So they apologized. Perfect. Done. Off my brain, hopefully off their brain too. And we can all just move forward on a professional level. I also recently experienced, or witnessed, I should say, a conversation with someone that I didn't think much of, because I really just thought the person was being human. And often we get aggravated, or our passion comes through sometimes as aggravation. I know I've had that myself. And so I didn't think much of it. I didn't pass judgment on that person. I didn't think they were bad or in the wrong. I just kind of recognized it and moved on in my own brain. But that person then several weeks later came back and apologized for that behavior. And that took so much courage, and probably didn't need to even be done in the format it was done, in terms of apologizing to a group of people, because the whole group might not have even known or recognized it or even remembered it. But the courage it took that person to come back and apologize to the group was amazing. So sometimes it's just really helpful to be humble and just take a step back, think about it, and come back and apologize. We've all been in those situations before. We are all human. And I do believe, like I just said, that everyone has a forgiving nature and is able to go, okay, and move on. I don't think I was the best coworker, especially in my 20s and probably early 30s. I was extremely competitive. I was probably a nightmare, to be honest with you. And over the past few years through LinkedIn, I have reached out to a few of my former coworkers and apologized for, being a coworker nightmare, because I can only imagine if I had a time machine and gone back and saw how I was probably really competitive and not very nice. It's probably pretty embarrassing. So just to get it off my brain, especially with social media and everything that's out there, I just think sometimes it doesn't hurt to even go back in time and think about, is there someone I should apologize to, and just try to make amends. And, they may or may not accept your apology. That could be true, but at least you tried and you gave it a best shot so you could move forward. Another example of something I've experienced, and I'm certain that the majority of us have experienced, is the shopping cart. So sometimes when I'm at the grocery store or a place like Target or Walmart and I'm just bebopping around doing my own thing, someone comes whizzing around the corner and their shopping cart either collides with my shopping cart or almost collides with my shopping cart. And I find that I'm the one that ends up apologizing. And I'm completely okay with that. I've heard other coaches say that you shouldn't apologize. Stop apologizing for things that you didn't do. But in this case, in something so simple, it's just easier for me to be like, oh, hey, I'm sorry. And, maybe that person then goes, oh, I'm sorry too. Or it was really my fault or whatever. And I just feel that when you have that attitude and that habit and that behavior, it just never becomes an issue. It never becomes an issue where you're stewing about, oh, her shopping cart hit mine, or it was really his fault. And I'm just using this as an example. There's lots of examples that are in this same realm. But it's just easier to be the bigger person, to be humble, to just apologize and be able to move on and get it off your brain and move on with your day. And I think because everyone strives so hard to be perfect, that a lot of this ends up being a outcome of wanting that perfection, of not wanting someone to think you're flawed or you made a mistake. My husband has this often on his charters, he just got these chairs and someone breaks a chair and they don't apologize, or they break a rod or a reel and they don't apologize. And I think it stems from they want to be seen as being perfect. So they don't want to take ownership that they are actually the ones that did it. And sometimes they even try to find some way to cover up or make excuses for what happened. And that's just a general behavior too. You see it with everything. People trying to be perfect, people trying to cover up, make excuses, blame others. And instead, if they would just apologize and move forward, I'm sure that so many things would just go much more flawlessly and smoothly. And again, their brain would be free to think of other things that are more productive than stewing on the fact that they screwed up and they probably should have apologized and just moved on. Apologizing in general just diffuses a situation. And that is something also to remember and keep in mind. When you just apologize, you diffuse the situation. You take out all the anger. You open the door for forgiveness. You open the door for moving forward. And it just will make your life so much easier if you can learn to apologize and make it a daily habit, a daily practice, just part of your life. If you don't already do it, if you already do it, that's fantastic. Keep on doing it. But it's something that, as I find, a lot of people don't. So if you can just make it part of your normal everyday behavior, if it's something you don't already do, I promise you, your life will just be much more free. You'll live with less stress and more ease. To wrap this up, I'm going to have my fingers crossed and send some positive thoughts out there that our final days of the Mercury retrograde don't have too many emotional breakdowns or passive-aggressive behavior like the article I had read about Mercury in retrograde says is very typical for people during this time frame. So we'll all have our fingers crossed that this last week goes smoothly. So the mantra I want to close with is, I release what is no longer serving me to create space for what does. I release what is no longer serving me to create space for what does. So if you're like me and you always like to work on fine-tuning your mindset and alignment, it helps to say this several times a day, to write it down, record in your phone, whatever works for you. Whatever works for you to get it into your subconscious, because reinforcement is key. I thank you for listening, and I appreciate if you share my podcast with a friend. I would love to hear from you. Either DM me. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook, LinkedIn. You can email me at melinda@melindavanfleet.com, or feel free to check out my website, The Good Karma Success Coach. So till next time, please remember to be grateful, curious, always be learning, and have some fun too. Thanks for listening.